welcome to Libel the Bible. We're back for episode 5. I'm Rusty.
I'm Scott.
And today we're going to be covering Genesis 20 through 25.
All right, yeah. But it's previously on...
let's do the previously on. Scott, do you remember what the previous
Not really. I'm actually flipping through this notebook. I wish there was a way we could record what we do and then play it back to refresh our memories.
And listen to it while we're editing it for 6 days.
All right. So, it took a little longer than Rusty did to edit the last episode. But, all right, we meet Abram in that last episode. Abram/Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I really remember. We met them. There was some shenanigans.
Well, he was another one that... was in the grace of God.
Right, he couldn't get his wife pregnant, so he got Hagar, the slave girl, pregnant.
Well, no. First, God, basically sends him away from where he's living in Turkey, or modern-day Turkey. I don't know what it was called back then. And he says, you have to move here to Canaan. This is going to be your land. That's the promise God makes, right?
He's going to settle Catan with the rest of the settlers of Catan,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes, he's going to have to build roads. He's going to have to watch out for robbers, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And so he moves to Canaan with the promise that he is basically going to be the father of this great civilization. But of course, due to circumstances, they have to go to Egypt. He gives up his wife to the Pharaoh in Egypt.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because we might see it recurring in the theme somewhere along the line here.
What do you mean, giving up his wife?
Yeah, his sister.
His sister, yeah. So he gives her up. He winds up getting her back because God intervenes. And not only that, he gets basically rich. He moves back to Canaan. He gets into a dispute with Lot. Lot moves away. Lot gets captured during a war. Abraham, finds him, right? Saves him. He has his, what do you call it? He has his Return of the King moment at the end where nobody, you don't bow to anybody. You don't kneel to anybody. He makes friends with, kings. He's, really living high on the hog.
Yeah.
God decides he's going to destroy Sodom
and Gomorrah.
Lot offers his daughters up to get raped
to a gang of rapists
instead of just these strangers that showed up.
I think New Jersey's annoying. Everywhere you go, you got to pay a toll. You got to go through a toll booth. There's tolls everywhere in Jersey. But you know what? Count your blessings.
It's not Sodom, yeah. I mean, that's quite the toll.
Got to give up my ass to get on the bridge.
So God, of course, decimates Sodom. Lot gets raped by his daughters, and they give birth to kids. That about sums up, right? That about sums up that section of the Bible.
Does God not know that went on? Maybe because Sodom's out in the open, that should happen in a cave. He kind of gives some people that. Maybe if you don't flaunt your bullshit out in the open, God doesn't feel like he has to be embarrassed.
So I wanted to get into that today. That's an excellent point because we're going to get into sections where I got to ask you. Sometimes God shows up. Sometimes he sends angels to show up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
God seems to be indisposed at times.
It's busy. I mean, you got to have a staff.
So let's discuss that. So today, again, we're going to do Genesis 20 through 25, and let's dive into it. So Genesis 20 starts with Abraham and Sarah at Gerar.
Oh, I wrote Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. That's wrong.
With arms wide.
With arms wide.
Well, in the Bible, it's Abraham and Sarah at Gerar.
Yeah. So they're journeying towards the Negeb again. Have we figured out what the Negeb is?
So that's what today's southern Israel is.
Okay, so they're going over there, and then they end up going to Gerar to settle down. And once again, when he gets there, he tells the king that Sarah's his sister.
By the way, I just wanted to bring this up. Genesis 19, the chapter before this one.
The daughter rapists?
Yes, it ends with the daughters raping. And there's it's a whole chapter, a whole section, the destruction of Sodom. But then Genesis 20 picks up all casual, and from there, Abraham traveled, and it's from there? From where? We were just talking about the destruction of Sodom.
I am.
Then the rape of Lot. And then, like, Genesis 20 is just like, and from there, Abraham travels to Negab. Like, oh, ignore everything that's just happened.
Do you remember the seminal blockbuster Independence Day from back in the 90s? See, like, they had, like, this screen where it goes day 3.
What made it seminal?
I don't know. I don't know. I just like that word.
I mean, it was a great CGI movie, right? Maybe like the first great CGI movie.
I don't want to argue about the merits of the technology used to make that movie. I'm just talking about. There's a great movie, but dude, man. So they used this cool effect with like day 2 they arrive, day 3 they were destroyed. So I kind of feel like when they showed like day 4, they showed like the ruins of the cities and everything. I think that's kind of what this was like. Day 3, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. Now day 4 is just we're getting back to
right.
We're moving on. We're moving
right.
on.
Okay. Fair. Right. Yeah. Okay. I have noticed you got to fill in like your own. You got to read between the lines. You got to fill in the narrative by yourself.
I do, or we all do.
I'm saying like if you really want to paint the picture of the Bible, you got to color it in. Like. You have the outline, but a lot of the color comes from you. And we're gonna get into that because there's gonna be parts.
Points of view are probably pretty important too.
Say that again.
Points of view are probably going to be really important as we go further.
And that's definitely something that I want to bring up. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So Abraham travels to Negab, which is southern Israel.
Yeah. How do you know that?
I looked it up.
Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, they go there. Here's my sister. The king takes... And really? Is that just a thing? Like, you walk into it, like, you're either giving up your ass or you're giving up a girl? Like...
Again.
Yeah.
Again, he pawns her off as his sister because, like, he has this impression that he'll be killed and she'll just be taken. And by the way... Sarah's like 90 fucking years old. Like, do you really still have to worry about the king being so enamored by her that he's willing to kill you?
She's crazy beautiful, I guess, even at that age.
All right, so whatever. So she's 90.
Listen, people live like quite a bit. So 90 is like the new 60, I guess.
Yeah, 90 is the new 60.
Yeah, so come on, you've seen some.
And she's still fertile.
Yeah.
So he says it's his sister.
Yeah. But then the king doesn't get with her. Like, he takes her, and he's sleeping one night, and God appears to him in a dream and says, yo, dude, you're going to die. Why am I going to die? Because you're sleeping with another man's wife. You took another man's wife. Right. She's a married woman. Right. And he was like, whoa, no. I didn't know anything about that, and I never touched her. So God does... this be considered a retcon? He goes, oh, yeah, I knew that. You didn't touch her because I commanded you not to touch her. You didn't know I was commanding you not to touch her, but you didn't touch her. So just give her back and everything will be fine. And you and your people won't die. Yeah.
I mean, God really could have come to Abraham before all of this and said, yo, Abraham, since I'm going to direct you to this place, and we've had this experience before, you know what? Maybe this time you don't have to lie and say that this is your sister.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out. This might be a plan on Abraham's part.
So, this king is completely like, all right, I didn't do anything. I'm completely innocent. Yeah. And he goes to Abraham and Sarah, right?
He's like, what the fuck, dude?
Like, what's going on?
Like, you're totally setting me up. Like God almost killed me because you lied about who this woman was.
But now it seems like it's a scheme on Abraham's part.
But not quite yet. But he does say, I felt there was no fear of God in this place, so you would just kill me and take my wife.
Oh, right. So Abraham justifies his actions by saying it was really a test on my part.
He's judging these fucking people like he judged the Egyptians.
I mean, not for nothing, but you know how children learn shit from their parents? Abraham's learning from God because God does a lot of shit where he tells people to do things and then he's like, because he wants to judge how they react and what they do. Right. So it seems like Abraham is taking a lesson from God.
Yeah, fair enough. But then he says, she's my wife, but she's also... Do you want to drop this bombshell?
So everybody, Genesis 20, verse 11, Abraham said, I did it because I thought, there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister.
What?
The daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother.
What?
As if that makes it better.
That's his half-sister he's with.
So he's actually, according to him, married to his sister now.
So now, I want to go back. These 2 times, maybe Abraham did not lie. He said, this is my sister. He did not say, it's not my wife.
Right.
They didn't ask him specifically, is that your wife?
Right. He said,
And even they did, he goes, that's my sister. So
that's
he
my
maybe he never
sister.
lied.
Right.
So he can't be brought up on those charges.
Right. So in this part, right. So in terms of Sarah, he's not lying.
Yeah. So
it's a very odd relationship.
Oh, and he tells her, everywhere we go, you just tell people you're my sister.
Yeah. It's almost like he
I wonder
wants,
why.
Yeah.
I wonder why. And now here might be the payoff. All of a sudden, and I said I wouldn't do this, so I'm going to Abimelech.
Sure.
Abimelech. That's the guy, the king. Gives him back Sarah, bunch of animals, some slaves, and permission to settle anywhere. And then 1,000 gold pieces, and says to Sarah, we good now, right?
Yeah. Like, please don't come back and me too me 5 years from now. You came to me willingly. I ain't seek you out, and I ain't even touch you.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is a better deal than they got in Egypt, because in Egypt, they didn't get the land. Here, they get almost everything they got in Egypt, right? And they get land to settle.
Wow, this is.
I mean, he's learning.
You know what? God should have changed his name to Abraplan. Right? This is definitely a plan.
Oh, and by the way, before Abraham and Sarah leave, God's like, all right, now I guess I'll just make all the women fertile again. It's like, what? What'd you do? What?
That's right.
Whoa.
So Rebecca was the king's wife, and she was barren.
Yeah, Rebecca comes up later. She winds up marrying Isaac.
No, Rebecca is Abimelech's wife.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, because Rebecca comes up later. I don't remember Abimelech's wife.
Yeah, Abimelech's wife was Rebecca.
Okay.
So, wait. So he had a wife. Oh yeah. You said multiple
Isaac
wives
gets married later. Remember, with the camels and
Gets married to the camels. No,
well, based on the age at which he got married, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a camel or two prior to Rebecca.
Oh, you know what? Maybe Rebecca. Oh, I might be mixing up the names here.
Well, either way, Abimelech's wife.
Right. I gotta go back and look at that. But yeah, apparently he had closed fast all the wombs of the houses of Abimelech.
Capital H. He.
Capital H.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, God.
Close their wombs.
That was nice of
because.
Now, did he do that after he took Sarah? From Abraham?
I'm assuming. Right, when Sarah entered the king's house,
God wasn't letting any.
Yeah, God just made everyone fertile. But
infertile.
I'm sorry, he made everyone infertile. Again, it's full of contradictions, because one, why would God told the king, I made it so that I knew you weren't going to do anything to her because I made it so. So then why would he have to make women infertile in addition to that? And he didn't even tell the king that during their conversation. He sort of dropped it off as a line at the end, on his way out the door. Oh, by the way, before I leave, I just want you to know your women can have kids again.
The goaltender's no longer in place.
Yeah. So that gets us to Genesis 21. And Genesis 21 sort of begins... it's the beginning of the fulfillment of God's covenant with Abraham. Because remember, God keeps promising Abraham, this great nation.
Yeah.
And he keeps telling him, first you have to do this, then you have to do that, then you have to chop off everyone's foreskin. So Abraham's doing like all these things, and there's no payoff yet. Like, he's been wandering from place to place, and God keeps promising him things, but he's like, but first you got to do this. So Abraham does it. Yeah. Then like years later, God shows up again, and he's like, all right, I promise you this, but now you got to do this. So God keeps like adding things to what Abraham has to do in order for God to fulfill his covenant.
If I may, I've just thought about this. The 318 foreskins, they probably weren't all for one spell. Like, they were probably could be used for across multiple spells. So God just sort of has a chance to like bank some foreskins for. Like,
he's got like a jar, like,
he's got like a shelf of like reagents, for all his spells and his brews and whatever the hell he's doing. So, because that I mean, 318.
He's like running a Canadian pharmaceutical company in heaven. So Genesis 21 is actually the beginning of God's fulfillment of his covenant, and it's titled, the first section is titled, The Birth of Isaac.
And Abraham was 100 years old when this happened.
100 years old, and Sarah was, I believe, 90 when she gives birth to Isaac. Yeah. So we have the birth of Isaac, and then we move on.
What happens 8 days later?
Oh, well, 8 days later, Abraham has to fulfill his part of the covenant. So
and spare no rod.
That's right. And moil the child.
You don't get it now, but you'll get it next week.
Oh, you'll see. You'll see. So that leads us to the next section of Genesis 21. Hagar and Ishmael sent away.
Yeah, I got a problem with this one. Well, Sarah sees Ishmael and Isaac playing together, and that kind of triggers her.
So Ishmael is now about 13 years old.
Okay.
At this point
please don't tell me playing doesn't mean playing in this context. It means something.
What kind of a person do you think I am, Scott? That is sick.
No, not you. I'm talking like knowing and like the words they use to disguise like prison rapists.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I hope they're just playing like jacks or whatever.
Anybody that's listened to the first 4 episodes would think that
it's probably not listening to the 5th episode.
Well, fuck them, all right? Since they're not listening, fuck them. All right, so Ishmael is 13 years old. He's been raised by Abraham. And as you're saying, him and Isaac get along.
Yeah. So Sarah decides, I'm going to cast them out.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want Ishmael having any of Isaac's inheritance. She doesn't want any of that happening. Right? So she gives her a loaf of bread, a bottle of water, and she goes wandering around the wilderness.
Yeah. They cast her out like she's now...
But I said, sounds like a you problem. Bye.
And by the way, this is the woman that she basically forced to give birth.
Yeah.
To Abraham's
no good
child.
deed goes unpunished. This might be where it started. This might be where it is.
I mean, it doesn't matter though because she's Egyptian, right? So it's like she's not
right,
like
that's right. She's Egyptian.
So
and then we already tell they look down on them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Nonsense.
she gets cast out.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, me? Oh.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so she's wandering around. They run out of water.
But wait. How did Abraham...
You just said you threw it to me. And
you know what? I rethought it. Because we're skipping Abraham's feelings. Because the Bible is really about feelings.
Yeah. So
how does Abraham feel about, like, Sarah casting out his son?
It's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care.
No, he's not like
no,
whatever.
You're right. He was not too happy with it.
So in Genesis 21, verse 12, God said to Abraham, do not be distressed because of the boy, because Abraham was upset. So God's like, don't be distressed because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for it is through Isaac that offspring shall be named for you.
And he does say he'll look out for Ishmael in a different way.
So God has to console Abraham because Abraham is actually like upset by Isaiah getting kicked out. Okay, so they get kicked out.
Ishmael.
I'm sorry to keep going back, but it doesn't matter because, like you said, if they stuck through the first 4 episodes, either they're with us or fuck them.
Yeah. So they run out of water. So now she takes the kid and puts him under some bushes, right? And then she walks away from him.
But why does she put him under bushes?
Because she doesn't want to see the child die.
Right, so he's dying.
But she mentions...
Because they're out in the wilderness.
Right, yeah, they're out of water. They're screwed. So they mention that she goes to a bow shot away. Meaning, is she planning on killing the kid? Like putting him out of his misery? Or just going to let him die of dehydration?
I just
like,
think,
why use the term bow shot away? Like, she's going to now draw up the bow. She can't really see him that well.
Yeah.
And she's going to kill him.
I think it's a way to describe the distance so that people who are reading it would understand the distance.
Why don't they use, like, measurements we can all understand? Like hectares and fathoms and, like, you know, standardized measures that make sense to everybody.
Maybe they didn't have them.
Oh, I guess not.
They had like
don't.
knuckles, you know, like it was 5 knuckles long.
All right. Who's knuckles?
Well, the ark, right? The ark was measured in what, hands or
Cubits.
Oh, in cubits.
Oh, wait, well, yeah, it was an elbow to the middle finger.
Right, so that's a cubit, right? So why didn't they just use a cubit? Just say she was whatever. So okay, we're looking for logic, you know, in the Bible.
Yeah. So then one of these angels of God shows up again.
Right.
And this angel confuses me again. Are the angels God? Because I don't know if it's this angel, maybe there's another angel later in the story, that speaks as if it's God. So
Right.
I'm not really sure. Like, we might have to get a definition of angel.
Like, are they just like megaphones? Like God sends like a meat puppet. That's like they're called angels, but they're basically meat puppets, you know? They're like megaphones for God to talk through.
Didn't Lady Gaga wear that on her dress like once?
A megaphone? Oh, a meat dress. Yeah, she had that horrible meat dress.
Oh.
She showed up to like the Grammys or something.
So are these
covered in meat?
These meat puppets like slabs of meat?
You don't get the statement, man, because she's just like meat, you know? Like the way like the media and the public views her. Like, you know, she didn't do anything to garner all this attention and all this scrutiny. Like, we're just looking at her like she's meat.
I don't think that was the case, because then I think we would have referred to them as the meat ear from now on.
The meat
ear. The meat ear. Yeah. All right, enough of that. So some angel shows up and was like, "Yo, don't give the boy up." He's like, "Lift the boy up," and I thought of that scene in The Lion King. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which, if I can go back, when I was trying to figure out this guy's name, what is it? I don't want to fuck this up. Abimelech.
Mm-hmm.
I thought in my head, Abimelech. In the jungle, the mighty jungle. And then this happened. Then I realized I don't think that song actually came from that movie, right? That song's from like the 50s or something.
I mean, the Bible's inspired a lot of things.
Yeah, so he says, "Don't despair. I'm going to make a great nation of him." And she opened her eyes, and there was a well in front of them, and they were able to drink from it. And he grew up in the wilderness and became like Legolas. Like he just got nice with a bow.
He's just like
right?
hunting, right? He's taking out orcs like 12 like shots in a second.
Yeah, isn't there a Marvel superhero that's a bow guy?
Yeah, he's like the most useless guy, Hawkeye.
All right. I'm just wondering if we
like what happens when he runs out of like arrows in his quiver? Like, what does he do? You know what I mean?
He quivers. That's like shaking trouble.
Nah.
And then Hagar gets him an Egyptian wife.
Right. So, just for purposes of geography,
I wonder if her name was Jane.
Jane,
because he grew up in the wilderness, and he's
Tarzan. Jane.
Probably Tarzan didn't have a bow and arrow.
Don't worry. Well, I'll cut that out in the edit. Yeah. So,
surprised you even heard it.
Ishmael settles in the area that's now like the Sinai Peninsula. You know where the Sinai Peninsula is?
I know they had military forces hiding out there after the Independence Day aliens blew up stuff. They were hiding out in the Sinai.
So the northeastern section of Africa is Egypt, right? Egypt's like right in the northeast section of Africa.
Right.
And then there's like a peninsula that runs like parallel to it. That's called the Sinai Peninsula. And then on the other side is like the Arabian Peninsula. So Israel starts like right there. So it's like this kind of like, V-shaped piece of land.
Geography.
So Ishmael is basically now like sort of like near Egypt, near Israel, like in that section. And that leads us to the next part of Genesis 21, which is Abraham and Abimelech make a covenant. A lot of covenants. They love their covenants in the Bible.
Yeah. And he says to Abraham, you're down with God and all. Now I want you to swear to me you'll be cool with me, my offspring, my prosperity, and the lands you are an alien in, you're going to be cool with us. And I'm like, wait a minute. So he's saying, you're down with God, so now I want you to swear. I'm like, dude, I hold all the cards. I want you to do shit. How is he telling Abraham that what he wants? Like making a demand.
He's like deathly afraid. Because
I know, but the language they used here, it almost sound like, yo, dude, you're going to do this.
Right. Well, they're very curt. Like everyone in the Bible's like very like to the point. You know what I mean? Like no one smooths anyone over. It's like God shows up and he's like, so what I want you to do now is I want you to like circumcise everybody. What I want you to do now is, build an ark because I'm going to kill everything on the planet. Like there's no like preamble. There's no sit down. We need to talk.
And this stuff might have happened, but it might have been edited out just for,
So he's afraid of Abraham and he really wants to have a good relationship with Abraham. But
Fair enough.
Yeah, but right away, Abraham's like, well, now that you mention it, there's like a little bit of a dispute.
First he sweared, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Right. So he swears.
But then he's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, one of my servants or somebody told me that your servants seized a well.
Yeah, like someone like took over land that I owned. There's like a well on it. Right.
That I own.
Yeah.
Which is a little strange because did he own? Well, he had already been given the land.
I mean, he'd been given land, right.
Okay. So Abimelech is like, this is the first I'm hearing of this. So what do you want to do about it? I didn't know this. So
yeah. So Abraham like offers him like goats or ewes.
7 ewe lambs.
Okay, so he offers him lambs and he says, give me this land. And I will give you these lambs, like that will be the exchange.
And this will buy your witness to that I dug this well.
Right.
I got the impression he didn't really dig the well, though. I got the impression like, just tell people I did this.
So you think so? You think Abraham's scamming him?
Because I think what would happen was I think some of the people like his servants might get a little mad that here comes Abraham just taking land away because of a misunderstanding about the wife and the sister. And, we like that well. And now he can at least say, no, he paid me for it, dude. He paid me for it. An agreement was made above your pay grade. Just let it go. So maybe that's all it was.
I mean, it's possible. I didn't take it like that.
Yeah, so Abimelech leaves, and then Abraham plants a tamarisk tree.
Yeah,
which I'm sure has nothing to do with anything.
So that's another thing. So I read that part and whatever. Like, I think they're just like marking like places, where maybe pilgrims can go and have journeys to. So like if you go to this part of Israel and you go to this fucking well, like this is the well that like Abraham like shit in or whatever he did in his well. Who knows what? Okay, why what? Why would they shit in a well? Why would they fucking circumcise themselves?
I mean, shitting in a well sounds like...
There's a million things why.
Yeah. All right, that's
fine. Why would he constantly give up his wife?
Because, and you broke my heart a couple episodes ago when you told me like this wasn't...
You broke my heart, Fredo.
This wasn't.
Is it like one of those?
This wasn't these weren't newspaper articles. These were people writing about the past.
Yeah.
Do you think whoever owns this well today, or when this was written, was like, "Yo, this is that well"?
Yes.
And now there's velvet ropes around it.
It's like
buy some tickets, get online.
It's like the person in New Jersey who like sprayed some like urine on a wall, and now it looks like, it's like Jesus, and people like line up to see like a pee stain that looks like Jesus on a wall.
Did that happen in Jersey?
I don't know. Who knows what goes on in Jersey?
I'm in Jersey often. I do not share that same. Yeah, let's move on.
Scott's always making disclaimers for shit I say.
What is that? The thoughts and opinions of the other podcaster are not representative of this podcaster.
All right, so that gets us to Genesis 22. And Genesis 22 starts with the command to sacrifice Isaac.
Oh, here we go again.
Yeah, I mean, it never ends with God.
I mean, so far since in this episode, like, God hasn't acted up too badly, right?
All right. Well,
he hasn't, even towards the end of the last episode, he didn't act up too badly.
I mean, he made all the women infertile somewhere.
Oh, yeah. All right.
They ain't even do anything.
It was a temp situation. It was an ad hoc solution to a problem that solved itself.
He's like Kylo Ren in the first movie where he just like gets angry and like fucks up like the control panel, you know? And and then he calms down, you know. So
that was one of the best scenes of that movie, by the way. When the stormtroopers saw it, the guy grabs the other stormtroopers like, "Yo, let's go the other way."
Yeah, let's get at it.
Fucking guy acting
up. So we've already established that God started off as a baby in a bathtub. So now he's growing up a little bit, you know. He's like reaching his early adolescence now, you know. He's still figuring out how to rule the universe. So he decides he's going to test Abraham. And in Genesis 22, verse 2, he said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you." So the very next line is, so Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him. All right. First of all, when God told Sarah earlier on in the book, you're going to have a kid, right? Sarah laughed, and there was like this whole exchange, right? Yeah. There was like a back and forth. Here, God's like, yo, take your son to this mountain and burn him.
What's funny, you said it with such a booming voice and read it word for word. I'm just going to read my note.
Yeah.
God says, take your son to the land of Moriah and smoke his ass on a mountain.
I mean, it's crazy.
And that could be mean 2 ways, because he wants him to burn him and to, you know.
Yeah, so, yeah, he's looking to smoke him, like New Jack City. Yeah. So, the transition to, you know, that command to, so Abraham rose early in the morning, you know, like, there wasn't a back and forth?
The only thing he responded to quick was the cutting off of dicks.
I mean, look, if I'm putting the book together, I'm trying to make Abraham look as the book, meaning the Bible. Mm-hmm. So if I'm collecting like stories from like different authors and I'm putting it together, excuse me, maybe there was a back and forth in the original text. But the editors decided, you know what? Let's not include that, because we want to make Abraham seem as loyal as possible. Because what kind of a father would not even question this?
Considering he did negotiate about Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed.
And by the way, he was upset when Sarah sent Isaac away. Ishmael, right? I'm sorry, Ishmael. When Sarah sent Ishmael away, he was upset about that. Here, he's just like, all right, what time should I set my alarm for tomorrow?
Maybe he's realized, like, there's no fighting with God. There's no discussing with God. There's no compromise with God.
So, yeah. So, either way, I just found it a strange situation. So, being Abraham, being, like, the follower of God, and by the way, don't forget, he's doing all of this because he has a covenant with God. The covenant being he will be the father of, like, you know, this. And his only son now, he's being told to kill his only son after doing all of those things.
Well, he's got Ishmael in the bullpen warming up, I guess.
But
maybe that's what he's thinking.
But hasn't he already been told that Ishmael will not be the line through which he spreads?
Yeah, he's going to be taken care of in other ways.
So either way, man. So he sets off with his son in order to kill his son.
Yeah. So I guess they get to base camp, and he tells the other 2 dudes that came with him, "You guys wait here. Me Me?
Wait in the car.
Yeah. Me?
We're going to go down into this dark basement
Isaac,
together.
This lit torch, this wood, and this knife.
And by the way, we're here to offer a burnt offering to God, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Isaac goes, hey, Dad, where's the lamb?
Yeah, he's like, Isaac gets like all suspicious. He's like, wait a second.
You the lamb, motherfucker.
So he ties him up.
Ties him up, yeah.
Now, do you think Isaac struggles?
Don't know. I can't imagine
He's like 13 years old at this time.
I don't know.
Like, does he struggle?
Is
he screaming, Dad, what are you doing? Why are you tying me up?
Wow. Maybe they didn't want an R rating for this, so they had to like scale back the content that they released to the public.
But the Sodom and Gomorrah part was all right, where the guy's like being raped by his daughters.
But they use sneaky words where, you know, the adults in the room got it, but the children watching the cartoon wouldn't have gotten the joke.
Nah, I don't think it's like they're looking out for that. I don't know. I don't think it matters. Isaac doesn't matter. Abraham doesn't matter. Only the will of God matters. I think this is what the moral of this, chapter is.
All right, we're gonna have to imagine he was definitely screaming, probably.
He
for
had
his
to
life.
be.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. He might have been the kind religious zealot like Abraham. You know, like he might have said, well, if this is what God wants, then I'll go quietly. But I don't think a 13-year-old would think like that. So he gets tied up.
Yeah, and he's about to knife him.
He's gonna cut him open.
And then, an angel of God appears and goes, "Yo, dude, I was kidding. Just kidding."
All right. So here's the thing, man. God shows up all the time, right? God's like strolling through the Garden of Eden, and he's like, "Hey, where's Adam and where's Eve? I don't see them." Like he's just like haphazardly like strolling about, right? So he'll show up like at all these different times, and like this seems to me like this might be the most important moment of creation, because he's already gotten rid of Adam and Eve. He scrapped that whole Eden plan. Then he did version 2.0 of the world with the flood. He didn't like that. And this is the guy that he's now chosen. This will be the guy who will seed the earth with my people that will worship me. And Abraham is about to kill the only chance for that seed to spread at the command of God. God can't show up himself at the last moment, like when Abraham is lifting like whatever, the sharpened stone, the flint that he's going to kill Isaac with.
Yeah, but that's why I think that this angel is the Lord. Like it's very confusing. I think this is God, because I think he says an angel appears, but then he speaks like it's.
So I have the section, I think. I might not have the section.
Okay, so the angel of the Lord, you proved your fear of God. Here's a ram to sacrifice. You know, let's do it the old school way. And now they said there's a phrase that's to this day, and I guess at the time it was written, on the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Now, is that something like when people go into like a situation where they don't have all the tools or what they need, they put faith in God? Like that's like a
read that back again.
On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided, referring to the ram that appeared for the sacrifice. Like we didn't have the ram, but God provided it. So,
right.
But they say that saying is used to this day. I got to assume it's being used in everyday situations. I don't hang out with people that really quote the Bible too much, so I don't know if is that a phrase that's used a lot.
Do not question God's will, because God will provide. So if you're in any particular bad situation, never question the will of God. Never question why your son was in a car accident and became a quadriplegic. Never question why your mom died of pancreatic cancer when you were 8 years old.
I don't think that's not what I'm feeling here.
You don't?
I'm feeling I get that, but I think in this particular, on the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. It's almost like God is great. God will provide what we need to provide. Not so much explaining away, tragedy, but more of like I'm eventually in the future going to get what I want, I need, because God will provide it.
Right.
So like when you see that bumper, you ever see that bumper sticker from years ago? You say, "Relax, driver. God is my pilot."
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah. So maybe that's it. I don't know.
Maybe.
So I have no driving skills, but God will provide.
Right. What you're saying is a little bit more direct than what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a little more like ancillary to that whole. Like it fits into what you're saying, but what you're saying encapsulates it better. Sure.
But now we get to a part that like really right up your alley. Because he says, "Now I will truly bless you." Now that you know the fear of God and you've proven to me that you fear me, and I'm going to make your offspring as numerous as stars and sand.
Yeah.
So, you got nothing to say about that?
So, I have a lot to say about God because, and I've brought this up already. It seems like, again, God keeps stringing Abraham along, and he keeps testing him, and he keeps making him do things, right? But when he makes the covenant with him, he doesn't say, you're going to have to fulfill like this and this and this and this. Like there's no contract that like extends beyond like what. In other words, God says, okay, I'm going to make a promise that your seed will fill the earth, and then you circumcise everyone. So Abraham does that. And that seems like that's it. Like, so now like we have fulfilled our contract, but God keeps adding amendments to the contract that Abraham doesn't even agree to.
You know where this takes us back to? Bespin.
I don't remember Bespin.
Bespin, the Cloud City, where Lando Calrissian was. Boba Fett turns to Darth Vader and goes, "That wasn't part of the agreement." And he's like, "I'm altering the agreement. Pray I don't alter it again." And by the way, I don't like to shout out other things yet. There's an episode of Robot Chicken where they do that whole scene, and Darth Vader continually alters this. Watch it. He keeps altering the agreement.
I know. In the classic, what's his name? Seth. What's his name? The guy
from Buffy. Seth Green.
Seth Green. Right. So it's like the classic, like Family Guy thing where they just like carry on like a bit like past its.
Yeah. But this is pretty good.
So.
I don't know if Robot Chicken really knows a Family Guy.
I don't want to talk about Robot Chicken. So God is constantly adding shit to the agreement, and Abraham keeps doing what God is asking of him.
Yeah, and he says all of the nations of the earth are going to gain the blessing because they're all going to be descendants of his offspring now. But he says something I'm going to point out because he says it again later. And you will possess the gate of their enemies. Everybody that goes, like, what is it? The gate of their enemies?
Yeah, I think so. You will possess the gate of their enemies. You're going to overtake, like, whatever kingdom your enemies possess will be yours.
Okay, all right.
Right? So right now, like, the Hittites and the, like, all these, like, different... who?
The stalactites, stalagmites.
The stalactites. The troglodytes.
You might have heard me say that before, but you probably didn't.
No, I barrel through, Scott. I ignore almost everything you say because, one, I don't know how important it is, and what I have to say is much more important.
Why don't you just jump right to
the children of
22.
Nahor? Do you want to do that section?
No, I'll let you do that one.
So I have written down the children of Nahor. And then it goes to Genesis 23 because...
I wrote down names, more names.
It's just a bunch of names. I think Nahor is Abraham's brother, and it just goes through his lineage.
Yeah. Right.
Like all his kids. And that gets us to a very sad chapter of the Bible. The book of Genesis, chapter 23. Sarah's death and burial.
Our listen, I honestly, I don't know how much I like this woman anyway.
She
was put in a rough spot, so I'm not going to judge her too harshly, you know.
I mean, listen, you live 127 years, you're going to do some fucked up shit in those 127
True.
years.
And nobody remembers really the good stuff.
Right, right. The good times. Marrying your brother. forcing your brother to have intercourse with your slave.
And get mad about it.
Pretending that you're well, not even pretending, being the sister. And then...
yeah, that's the problem. Not pretending.
I mean, yeah. So anyway, so poor Sarah, she dies. I wonder if she was still hot when she died. I mean,
she was probably a lovely corpse.
You think so?
I think even in death, she was a handsome woman.
So at 127, Sarah dies. And Abraham, he asks the Hittites, who I'm assuming are running the territory where he lives.
Yeah.
He asked them for a very specific cave owned by someone, that's a Hittite citizen.
He's looking for some place to bury his wife out of his sight. I guess he doesn't want to view upon a grave all the time.
But the funny thing, like, he knows specifically which cave on this person's property, almost like he's been, like, skulking about the property, like he's been casing it.
Oh.
Like, how else would he know about this cave on this person's property? You know what I mean?
I mean, Google Street View? I don't know.
No, they probably had those, like, fold-out, like, atlases back then. No Google Street View. He just, like a Road McNally, Rand McNally. So, so he wants this cave.
In some of the pictures, you can see the shadow of the pterodactyl with the camera on its head.
So by the way, he makes this request in front of apparently like a crowd. Like, are they in an amphitheater? Like, is it like
kept mentioning how it was all done in front of the Hittites?
Yeah.
In front of the Hittites. In front of, like 4 or 5 times they mentioned. Yeah, we get it.
It's like theater in the round, Shakespeare in the park. So the owner of the cave happens to be there, Ephron.
Yes.
So Ephron is there, and Ephron's like, bro, you're like a special man, right? I know God's looking out for you, so I'm going to give you this cave.
Yeah, and then Abraham's like, no, I want to give you money for it.
Right. So Abraham insisted not only that they make like a financial exchange, right? But he insisted that there were like witnesses there to watch this.
So do you think this goes back to he doesn't want to be in debt to anybody? Like, he doesn't want to say somebody gave me something, or I am because of these people.
Okay, so think of it like this. That's his motivation, right? But remember, we're not reading a newspaper. We're not reading a history book. We're reading like a parable, a tale of someone writing about Abraham, right? So why would they show that as being a motivation? So what I'm starting to understand as I read the Bible, when I mentioned earlier, you have to sort of read between the lines. You have to like paint the outline that's presented to you. So this is one of those parts where it's easy to sort of like gloss over, skip over. He wanted this cave. He insisted on paying for it and having witnesses. This is a model, right, for society. Don't just make a deal, bro, because like if you and your neighbor say, you're like, yo, I want to build this fence here. Do you mind? And your neighbor's like, nah, man, no problem. Build the fence. And then you build the fence and then the neighbor like tears it down. You can't prove that you made an agreement. Okay. So this is like a model for people. Like, not only should there be an exchange of like, whatever, cash or goods for a service, make sure there are witnesses. So it's like contractual
and now we
law.
Have written documents.
It's
and
the beginning
and notaries.
of right.
Okay, nice.
So I think a lot of the Bible, like parts that we might skip over, like normally, because we're not used to reading something with so little like detail, it's just like so much happens in like 3 lines. You got to really unpack it. So I think that's what that is. So in Sarah's death and burial, that's like the takeaway. The takeaway is like contractual law is born amongst men.
Interesting. So Abraham invented that.
I mean, yeah. And so that gets.
Do you think it's because Abraham's the type of guy that would go back on his deals, and he just figures everybody would go back on their deals? So
well, usually that's right. Usually the suspicious people are suspicious because they would do the thing that they're suspicious someone else would do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good. So now that takes us to Genesis 24, the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how did I mix up Rebekah here? From whatever. This is the real Rebekah coming up. Right?
Yes, Scott, indeed. How would you possibly have ever mixed it up when you read this like literally 10 minutes before we started recording? So, we're at the marriage of Isaac and Rebekah. Do you want to speak?
No, I don't think I do now. That was kind of not nice. So Abraham says to one of his servants, he goes, "Put your hands under my thigh."
That was really like, what? I'm sorry. Okay. That would have been like a normal thing if that had been introduced like earlier in the story, right?
It's got to be a first time.
But there's no context. It's like, apparently in order to make like an oath, you got to like put your hand under Abraham's thigh.
And does that mean is he in a seated position or a laying down position?
I don't know.
I mean, if he's standing, you can't put it.
Is
really
he
under
on his stomach, on his back? I don't know. I don't know, Scott.
On his side, yeah.
Is he like in bed in like Willy Wonka's grandfather's like long like nightgown?
Skin contact, or is he wearing? Like
I'm gonna assume if he wants him to put his hand under his thigh, and swear it's got to be skin on skin.
Handshakes have not been invented yet, so he's like, I want you to take this oath that you're going to go somewhere and get my son Isaac a wife.
Well, not somewhere. He wants him specifically to go to his homeland.
His homeland that he traveled far and wide from.
And he's like, and promise me, like totally promise me, you're not going to have him like marry one of these like trashy like Hittites or Egyptians or like, I specifically want like my own kind.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, wow. Purity of the bloodline, huh?
Yes.
Or just straight racism or, whatever.
I mean.
Wow. And don't take my son with you to, like, go, like, help choose the wife.
Yeah, it's almost like if the son goes and sees, like, where he's from, the son will be like, I like this place. I'm not going to go back.
I don't think so. I think what happens is because he sends him back to his father's house. And... to his kindred.
Who's he? He sent.
Abraham sends the servant to his homeland, to his actual father's house, and amongst his kindred.
Right.
So, look, what do you think he's going to bring back? Somebody who's related to him.
Yes.
And Isaac might not be down with that, so he's like, "Don't take Isaac. He doesn't need to know where this chick came from."
Oh,
like he'll know, like that's his cousin.
Think, like later on when he gets married to Rebekah, hoping I'm not spoiling anything because the title is The Marriage of Isaac and Rebekah.
Pass on that one.
Do you think that he doesn't know who she is? No, he's got to know who she is because she finds out who they are. She's going to find out. The slave is going to tell her.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a problem like at this point.
So
we're not even like we haven't even said how they're related. So we'll get to that.
And by the way, this is a servant, not a slave. I don't know if there's a difference in what that means.
I think it's synonymous.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So the servant goes, "Wow, that's a pretty big task. What if I go and I fail at my task?"
Yeah.
And he basically is like, if you give it the old college try, that's all that matters because God's going to intervene and he's going to make this happen.
Yeah.
So he grabs 10 camels and a bunch of gifts.
But he also says, like, if they don't come back with you, you're absolved. Like, you don't have to worry. Like, as long as you do your best, you don't have to come back with
That's quite the honor system because I got to tell you, I've met a lot of people in my life. You make that deal with, they just go hang out somewhere for a week, come back and go, nope, couldn't get it done. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, scumbags. You know who you are.
So that's the thing too, right? Like these servants are so loyal. It's amazing, like the amount of trust that Abraham has in this guy.
Trust? I think somebody once said, it's better to be feared than respected. Dude's got God in his corner. You're going to do whatever the fuck he says.
That's true.
Yeah. So he takes 10 camels and gifts, and they go to a watering hole outside Nahor, which I guess is now the name of a city or village or whatever.
Well, that's where Abraham is originally from. I think we talked about it earlier. It's Turkey. So if Abraham is in Canaan right now, his servant winds up traveling north into where Turkey is.
Okay. So he stops at the watering hole, and he apparently says he's got a criteria all laid out how he's going to pick the girl.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When he's at the watering hole, is he just casually? Because for some reason, so look, logically, you would think he gets to the watering hole, he like sets out like, his tent or whatever like caravans do, right? And he's like chilling, he's grilling, he's drinking a beer, he's smoking some of that like Kush. Kush. It's a strain of pot.
Oh, sorry.
I'm assuming that's what you get like in the Middle East, like Kush is just like growing all over the place back then before the man got fucking all codified about it.
Couldn't figure out how to tax it.
So he's chill. He's tailgating, right? He's arrived. He's tailgating. But for some reason, like that would be the way to do it. But for some reason, as I was reading it, and it didn't say this is how it went down, but I was imagining him like looking over a dune. Like he arrived and he's like perving over a dune, like looking down on this watering hole, and in his mind, like concocting the plan of like how he's going to find a wife for Isaac.
Okay, I didn't see it that way. I kind of saw him like he walked his camels up, he parked his camels, they kneeled down, and he didn't water them. He didn't give them water, and he didn't give himself water. And he says to him,
"You think this goes back to what we were saying earlier? Like suspicious people are suspicious."
I was going to
so
point
you think
out
I'm like, you think I'd show up and be like,
I was going to say projecting much, but I figured I'd let you go, let the listeners decide on their own. Because there's kind of a thread through a lot of these podcasts that come from you. So he said the first woman that comes over and gets water and gives me water and waters my camels.
Yeah, my camels.
Is the one.
Yeah.
So here comes Rebecca with the pot on her shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
She fills it up and he runs over to her and like, please let me drink.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, here, weird guy at the fucking place with there's tons of water for everybody. Yeah, you need my water, fine. And then she sees the camels and there's a trough there, and she fills up the trough, and I'm thinking, this dude has obviously got means because he's got 10 camels and they're loaded up with gifts and shit.
Yeah.
You can't drink yourself? Like, she should have looked at him like, something wrong with your fucking legs? Why am I doing this?
So this is the reverse of a Bronx Tale thing. Remember where he's like, if she's the one when after you open the door for her and she gets in the door, if she leans across and like unlocks the door for you, she's the one. Okay. So this is like the reverse of that. So this servant's like, if she comes up to me and she gets me like these things, like she's definitely going to be the one, Yeah. But what's funny is the way you described it is really funny, right? Where like he approaches her and she's like, what the fuck is going on? But like, she's also very manic. Like, she's like really like servile. Like she's like, oh my God, yes, my Lord, of course I will. And then she runs to get like water for the camels. Like everybody is like a 1920s like movie starlet, like in like every like silent movie or like movies from the 30s, like all the women are like all breathy and like everything is like they're hysterical.
So the silent movies, they're breathy, and you know how that you know that.
Listen, it's when you're on the Kush, you hear it all.
When you're on the Kush.
So she gets the water for the camels, and he's like, holy shit, this is totally the one. You mind if I crash at your place?
Yeah, at your father's house?
Yeah.
And she's like, sure. And then when they get there, he gives her like a nose ring. And like a bracelet.
Yeah. He gave her a bracelet and like a nose ring.
Gives her some gifts. Yeah. Now she walks home with bling, and her brother, what's his name, Laban?
I don't even know. I didn't write it down.
Yeah, saw the gifts that she was wearing, and then started kissing that servant's ass. Oh, sir, I got the bed ready. I'll take care of your camels. Here's some Kush, and Yeah, really.
Well, you have to figure they're living a modest life because Abraham, right? He had like all these servants. So, his son probably doesn't have to go and draw water, or his son doesn't have to go and work, and his wife, Sarah, when she was alive, she didn't have to do these things. So I think this sort of shows you they're not a wealthy family, his family back home. You know, like they're workers. They have to, like, work to survive.
And at this point, the servant actually tells the family the story about how Isaac can't have a wife.
Right.
From the Catan.
Like, he tells them who he is. He tells them who sent them,
yeah,
right?
He does tell them the story. And he does say, and the Lord has shown me the right way to obtain the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son.
Right.
Like, what?
So Rebecca winds up being the granddaughter of Abraham's brother. What's his name again?
Bethuel?
No, the brother wasn't.
No, that's her father.
The brother was Nahor. So Nahor, I think, was Abraham's brother, and she's Nahor's granddaughter.
All right, so
Rebecca.
they're in the father Rebecca's father's house right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the house is Nahor. Do you think when they're out of town they refer to their house as the Nahor house?
Well, it's interesting that you bring this up because I'm pretty sure when Rebecca is introduced, she is described as being a virgin, like she's really beautiful and a virgin. So you're right, it is the Nahor house.
Yeah. It's almost like you're window shopping. No, not that one. Not that one. Do you know protocol? Sorry, edit this out. That was a 3PO res.
So they're at dinner, and okay, here's another thing that I'm having trouble with. Timelines. Remember the first few seasons of Game of Thrones? Like whenever they had to travel from one place to another, that shit would take place over 3 or 4 episodes. Then when the writers got lazy and didn't give a fuck anymore and wanted to go off and write their Star Trek movie or whatever, someone would go from north of the wall to King's Landing in half an episode. They just show up. So this servant, is this all in one day? How long did it take him to get to Turkey, first of all?
If you can tell me how the White Walkers got those huge chains to get the dragon out of the ice, you could tell me.
Nah, come on. They're organized. They had the king. What's his name? What was the king's name? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. That guy who wound up being so inconsequential anyway because the whole series built it up.
Guys, can we bring
it back? Yeah. We'll cut that out. Yeah. So, what's the timeline? Is this the first day, he's in town, and after how many years of traveling? Because he's got to get from, he's got to cover a good amount of...
Do we know? We don't know that... I don't think we can discuss time because we don't really know distances either.
Well, we know approximate. We know, so he's going at least north all throughout what is today's Israel and into Turkey. Let's call it about 1,000 miles. Let's say 800 miles to 1,000 miles.
Let's say it's 5,000 miles.
No, it's definitely not 5,000.
Because they would walk 5,000 miles.
You're a dick.
And do we know what the miles per gallon of a camel is? Because if you do that, we can do the math.
I think camels can do they can walk a lot, but the problem is you're not all riding the camels. You have to do the walking too.
Do they walk on Wednesdays?
What's that?
Do they walk on Wednesdays?
Because it's hump day. Yeah. Well, yes, because it's hump day. So I would think
it's like their Sabbath though.
I don't think so.
It's
I think they're humping, man. They're humping the loads.
Right.
So.
Oh, shoot. Do you think that term, I got to hump this down there, you think it comes from camels? Another phrase that we use today?
Possibly.
I'm adding the ding sound effect back into this podcast.
So they're at the dinner table. However many days it took him to travel to this place or years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming this is his first day in town. He's at the dinner table and there's no can I stay the weekend and maybe smooth things over. He's just he just spills everything and he's like
you said, right to the point, Kurt.
Yeah. Right there, I want to bring Rebecca back. So the family's okay, just give us like a few days,
10
like
days to be
let us
specific.
say our goodbyes, let us whatever, teach like Rebecca about like sex and like what marriage would be like.
Not only that, not only give 10 days, it was almost like, I thought they were being devious. I thought they were sending him away. Go back to your master.
Mm-hmm.
We'll send her in 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to see her again. He's going to take the gifts, take the loot.
It didn't seem like that was that kind of family. It seemed like they also knew what Abraham was about, and they were like more than happy to like give Rebecca to Abraham's son.
Okay.
So he's like, after they make that offer, like, sure, you can like take her with you, but give us some time. He's like, I kind of want to like leave right away. Like,
Yeah.
Isaac, he needs a wife.
Yeah.
Because from my understanding now, Isaac is about like 37 years old.
Okay.
Which gets us to this point of how shitty Abraham and Sarah were as parents. Because it's the job of parents back then to find a wife for a son, especially like if you're of money, like Abraham, right? It's his and by the way, God's like, you're going to be the father of these great nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he gives this old woman a son, but then the way they raise the son, one, for some reason, he doesn't find the wife on his own. I don't even know if that's the way it was done back then. And two, I know for a fact that like fathers find, daughters, well, maybe back then also daughters for their sons to marry. Who knows? He married his sister.
I think to answer your question, I think we're seeing the beginnings of privilege.
What do you mean?
Like, yeah, it used to back in the old days, back when days were good and people knew how to live right. Wore pajamas and took things slow. they there was rules that they followed. But now the modern, all these kids are looking at their stone tablets all day long. Like, everything's gone out the window.
So. Yeah, so basically Isaac is like 37 years old. He's never been married. And fucking Abraham, like, it took Sarah's death for Abraham to be like, oh shit, before I die, I got to make sure that my son gets married so like my covenant with God can be like fulfilled.
That's fine. That's fine. But I'm going to give Abraham a pass here. I mean, that shit didn't happen until he was 100 years old and she was 90 and like so.
Whatever. So his son is 37. So the servant's like, we got to rush back. We got to make sure you consummate the marriage. We got to make sure, like, you get knocked up and, like, you have, like, Isaac's kids because this is all God's plan.
I mean, you got a lot from him saying, nah, I kind of want to leave now. But, okay.
So they're like...
Maybe this servant's life is on hold, too. Maybe he wants to get back to his,
I mean, it's possible. Yeah. Sure. It's all about him. So
I didn't say that.
So the people of the house are like,
no gray area.
Hey, Rebecca, what do you want to do? You want to go with this guy?
She's like, yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, sure.
Which kind of made why'd they argue for 10 days?
Yeah, I don't know. So she decides, all right, so she's going to go. So they go and as she's like, they arrive where Isaac is, and Genesis 24, verse 62. Now Isaac had come from Beer-lahai-roi and was settled in the Negeb. Isaac went out in the evening to walk in the field, and looking up, he saw camels coming. And Rebekah looked up, and when she saw Isaac, she slipped quickly from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is the man over there, walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife.
A couple comments on that. One, I thought his master was Abraham, not Isaac. Well, Abraham sent him on the quest.
Yes, but I'm assuming like the son is also the master.
I guess, yeah, you got a
sure.
royal family.
Yes.
So while you were describing that, I was wondering, was she looking at him like Andy Dufresne looked at Red on Sewatneu on the beach when he was working on the boat?
No, I think because they were so happy to see each other. It was like
there had to be some really cheesy music playing right when this happened, right? Like, who is that fine man that just happens to be the man she's gonna get into the tent with in a few minutes?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like joy on her
dreamy.
part.
No,
It's going to be
music.
scary because remember, he's 37. She's a virgin, so I'm assuming she's young.
Wait. So you think everywhere they went, every time she saw a man, she got off the camel, she's like, who's that man over there? That's not him. Got back on the camel. Who's that man over there?
Well, it's the whorehouse, right? She's from the whorehouse.
no whorehouse.
So they do it like right away.
Wait. Can we get back to the... Oh, no. I was looking at the spelling. I was thinking maybe it's actually no whorehouse. But no, it's not.
So they have sex right away.
In his
mom's tent.
Which I assume is in her bed, because, I mean, I'm sure there's not more than one bed in there.
So, okay. So right away, like, just they become man and wife immediately. And that gets us to the next section of... The next chapter is Genesis 25. Abraham marries Keturah.
Oh, save that whistle for the next one. I jumped ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So Abraham gets married to this woman, Keturah, okay? She winds up having 6 sons, and then the Bible, like, names them all, and I'm like, who gives a fuck? Because even if they come up later, I ain't gonna remember that shit, you know what I mean?
No way.
But here's what caught my eye about Genesis 25. So Genesis 25, verse 6 says, but to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living.
Right.
And he sent them away from his son Isaac.
Right. So Isaac was the one and only ruler.
Okay, that's
so there'd
fine.
be no question.
But here's the thing. Abraham got married to this woman Keturah, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a concubine. That's a wife. He got married. So does he also have kids with concubines?
Yeah, definitely. Apparently, yeah.
Right.
So,
so he's like, he's having kids with, like, all he had to do was get rid of Sarah. And now he's having kids left and right.
Yeah, but I think he was probably doing that before.
It's like Henry VIII. Like he's like marries these women who can't give him kids, and then he like has to chop off their heads so he can like remarry and have like. So Abraham is like spreading his seed.
Henry VIII? Is he in there?
No, he's not in the Bible.
Oh. Okay.
So
stay in universe, man.
I'm sorry. You're right. So Abraham marries Keturah.
I don't think they have children together.
He has 6 kids with her, and
he does have 6.
And apparently he has kids with his slaves. Okay. And then he croaks.
Yeah, and he wills all his remaining possessions.
So the
to
death
Isaac.
of Abraham, he's 175 years old.
Nice.
And he gives everything to Isaac, right? But what was interesting was Ishmael showed up. Ishmael showed up and helped Isaac bury him. So Ishmael is not entirely out of the picture. Apparently, he's still getting like word, or like Abraham is finding a way to like keep in touch.
I'm glad. That's nice.
So it wasn't like a total falling out, you know. So he shows up and he buries him, and he gets buried like pretty much where Sarah's buried, right? Like either in the same cave or
I'm pretty sure it was like right in the cave.
Okay. And then we get to a section called Ishmael's descendants. Ishmael lived to 137, and basically his kids wound up inheriting that part of the Sinai Peninsula that we talked about earlier, that part in between Egypt and Israel.
Well, I know he had 12 princes. I don't know what they were princes.
And that's like the area that they ruled over was pretty much that part of the world.
Okay.
So this gets us to the birth and youth of Esau and Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts off all fucked up. You know why it starts out all fucked up?
I'm sorry, was this Rebecca's kids?
Yes.
Wait, she had these kids after he died? After Isaac died?
Isaac didn't die. Ishmael died
at
137.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, mixed them up.
So here's the thing. So Rebecca, it turns out, this is like years later now. So like she's already been off the camel. They've already been in Sarah's tent, you know, consummating their marriage.
Off the camel.
This is like years later, because it's like telling you like Abraham is now dead, Ishmael is now dead. So you got to figure like Isaac is at an advanced age. Abraham frantically sent his servant to like get him a wife so that he can like have kids so that God's covenant can be fulfilled. Apparently, years later, there's no kids because it turns out Rebecca's fucking infertile. So God, who pointed out or touched Rebecca in order for the servant to like, you know, because God is like controlling everything, he chose like an infertile woman, but, you know, in true God fashion, he comes in to save the day, to make himself look like he's being, you know, all magnanimous, like, don't worry about it, I'll help you.
I gotta say, and don't take offense to this, like, through that whole rambling thing, I like stared through you just now, and I didn't hear most of what you just said, and I apologize for that.
That's okay, man. Rebecca can have kids.
Okay, that was said there?
And what?
That was said?
Yeah, so this is the problem when you read the section literally a minute before we go on the air. You don't know what's going on.
No, that's not true. I just took notes a minute before.
So Rebecca, she can't have kids.
All right.
And God's the one that brought Rebecca to Isaac. So God is now setting it up to be the hero when if right from the start he should have hooked up Isaac to like, right.
It's like an arsonist also being the firefighter who puts it out. Like,
so that's what I'm saying, right. So he's like, right, he's creating these situations that he then like comes in and solves and everybody's like, yay, God. So
well, not everybody.
She becomes pregnant with twins. But
yeah.
she's having a difficult pregnancy.
They're kicking each other's ass in her womb.
So God says to her in Genesis 25, verse 23, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples born of you shall be divided.
Sounds like hateration.
The one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger. First of all, what kind of fucked up shit is that to say to a pregnant woman? You know what I mean? Like, she's already having a difficult pregnancy. Now he's like telling her that her sons are basically, you know, going to be diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
They're fighting with each other.
Yeah. So Esau, he's born red and hairy? What? What does that mean?
So yeah, so that's a whole other.
Does that mean
thing.
he's covered in blood and he's got a full head? Like some kids are born with hair.
Maybe he's like a redhead.
No, I got it. I thought the skin was red.
Just the skin is like freckled.
No, I thought he was just like red, like with a sunburn.
So you're saying he was born literally red? I mean, all kids are born kind of red. You know?
So maybe. Maybe Jacob was like really pale and like sickly, like he was the runt.
Bro,
and weren't they
I don't know what's
wasn't one of them born holding onto the other one's ankle? Like, what did that signify?
Yes. So that signified...
Like, he was pulling him back in? Like, I want to go first?
Like,
you think it was a struggle to get out of the womb first?
So the son that was born second, he's going to be the one that rules over the first son, right? So Jacob, the younger son, was born holding on to the ankle of Esau, or whatever his name is. Uh-huh. And that signifies the fact that, like, he's pulling him back so he can propel himself, like, forward.
Sort of like if you survive a plane crash, you just climb it over seats.
So, like, if you and me are falling out of an airplane together and there's no parachutes, like, we're grabbing onto each other just before we hit the ground. Like, I turn you into the ground. You know what I mean? Trying to, like, save myself. Yeah, so
I mean, in that kind of bang situation, you can't really think about,
So
just reactions at that point.
Right.
Scumbag.
So they're born, and according to verse 27 of Genesis 25, when the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field.
And that's why Isaac loved him.
While Jacob was a quiet man, living in tents.
And that's why Rebekah loved him.
So Isaac loved Esau because he was fond of game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So, again, there's like always like these favorites. Like,
yeah, I got to say, and Esau chose right because we know God loves meat. He loves his meat. So,
right.
Yeah.
But maybe he didn't choose right because Jacob is going to be the one, right?
Well, we're not there yet.
That dominates. Okay, so now we get to the last section that we're going to discuss today. Genesis 25, Esau sells his birthright. This is... I mean, you could take this a lot of different ways. So Esau is out hunting or working the field or whatever he's doing, right? I could read the verse if you want, but I think let's just discuss it.
No. Proving you can read doesn't really...
He comes back from work, and how's he feeling?
Famished.
He's really hungry.
Famished.
Okay. And what is Jacob? What does Jacob happen to be doing?
Making some shit stew that he's,
Yeah,
listen, he's a homebody. He's probably a good cook, man.
Yeah, it turns out he's making like lentil stew.
Sounds yummy.
All right. So Esau is really hungry. And
hey, whoa. And if he's so good with the bow and a hunter and he's all about the game, what the fuck's he hungry for?
Well, maybe
how come he doesn't have a chunk of like Brontosaurus burgers on his shoulder to cook on?
So again, I don't know that he was actually hunting in this particular like case. He may have been just like working the field.
Okay.
So whatever it is, he's out in the sun. He's like, man, I could really use like a burger and a beer, right? But Jacob, being the little prick that he is like, all right, you want to eat?
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. The prick that he is? He was supposed to be the firstborn. He got dragged back into the womb.
No, Jacob was the one that was holding on to the ankle. Jacob was the second-born. Esau was born with Jacob's arm or hand around his ankle.
Listen, I think we all tend to root for the underdog anyway. I'm on team Jacob right now.
Jacob's a piece of shit. Okay, and if we're gonna argue about the Bible right now, Scott, and if you're gonna go with Team fucking Jacob, then I don't know if we can continue to do this podcast together. We might have to branch off. Okay, and I'm gonna take the fucking Esau line, and you can go fuck off with Jacob. Jacob's an asshole.
Does he have a ladder?
I mean, look, Esau. Don't get me wrong. He's a fucking idiot.
Can I tell you something? You didn't strike me as the type of guy who, we're talking about people that have been dead for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And based on what very little we know about each other, you're willing to end this endeavor, probably our friendship, and go take the Esau line.
Well, look, man.
I'm wondering, do you know more about Jacob than I know at this point? Obviously.
What I know is, Scott.
I think you're very intolerant of people with other opinions.
Well, it's not an opinion, it's the Bible. And I'm taking the Bible
I'm not,
very seriously. And I might be having a conversion moment right now over Esau and Jacob. I think this might be the trigger.
Wow.
That really gets me into it.
5 episodes of a collaborative experience, and you've completely gone, savage.
Jacob is like, sure, I'll give you some food.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you got to give me?
Your birthright.
You got to give me your birthright. What's a birthright?
What's his birthright in particular? I don't know.
Well, the birthright is like Isaac's inheritance.
Because he's the firstborn?
So Isaac is the son of Abraham. Abraham's dead. Isaac got everything from Abraham. When Isaac
doesn't like Jacob.
It's not that he doesn't like him. He just favors Esau.
Okay, but Jacob's a prick.
I think Jacob's a prick.
I mean, you're basing that on.
What am I basing that
on? Okay. He's a simple guy making some stew.
Bro.
What has transpired right now that you're willing to end this collaborative effort over this? Like, what do you know about Jacob and Esau that I don't know?
I know what he does.
He says, give me your birthright. All right, go ahead. And what's Esau do?
Esau gives it to him.
Yeah, like without an argument, like it's not even a big deal.
Yeah, no, he's a dipshit. Esau's a dipshit. I'm not arguing the fact that he is not. But first of all, let me tell you something. He could be a little bit slow. You don't know, like intellectually, he might be a little bit slow. He's more physical, right? He's like out in the field hunting. He's not like a thinker. His brother is like at home. He's probably like studying and like
learning how to cook, not just kill animals.
Like reading. And he manipulates his brother.
Wait a minute.
Into giving up his birthright.
Okay, but let's think about. All right, so now Jacob, let's say and listen, you shouldn't love someone more or less because of their intelligence level. But explain to me why you think it's okay that Jacob, just because he's the firstborn and likes to kill animals, he gets his father's affection. I mean, Jacob's
not the firstborn.
I'm sorry, Esau.
Okay.
gets all the love and affection because he's the firstborn, and he likes to kill things.
But you keep saying he gets all the love and affection.
It's clearly saying Isaac loves Esau more than Jacob.
It didn't say more than.
No, you're right. It didn't say anything about. He probably nothing's
like
him.
he favors him.
I think they say he loves him, and Rebecca loved the other one. Like there was no love for each other. There was no crossover.
That's
love.
not what I got at all. I just got like.
All right, so basically, Esau's been living high on the hog just because he came out of the womb first, and here Jacob is his whole life trying to do, get some respect. He's not getting it, so he finally sees an opportunity. He goes, "Okay, Mister, I get everything. Let me get your birthright," and he just gives it up. So you know what? Maybe he didn't deserve that birthright. You can't just be handed shit. No. You know what? Jacob worked to get that birthright from Esau.
So Jacob was resentful that Esau was more favored by Isaac.
Yeah.
Okay. But what does that have to do with Esau?
Well, Esau was the
It's not
the
his,
embodiment
but it's
of
not,
like the thing that
for a brother to fuck over another brother.
Really? Because this has happened before in the Bible, and this is the least of the problem. This is the mild version of it. Last time this happened, somebody caught a pitchfork in the face.
So we can disagree about this, but I think what we can agree on is this. Abraham and his whole fakakta fucking family are completely fucking dysfunctional. Can we agree on that? It is a completely dysfunctional family.
From a certain point of view, I guess.
From a certain point of view?
You're going to find a lot of the things that we hold to be truths are, from a certain point of view.
Okay, so
wait. So, all right. So he agreed. What is his birthright? It's just everything.
The birthright is his inheritance, like his share of the inheritance.
So he gives it up. So now I'm going to say, yeah, maybe Jacob's taking advantage of him now. It might be swinging me over. Because why did Jacob wait till he was famished? I'm assuming like he's famished, like going to die from starvation kind of famished. So he'll give up anything to eat. And like,
so the parable is like the lesson that you're supposed to take. One side of the lesson is, number one.
I'm sorry, I didn't know we were reading a lesson.
I mean, right. So it goes back to what I was saying about like that earlier section when Abraham struck the deal, like about contracts. Like this is the way you do a contract, even though it didn't say, now here's a very important lesson, everyone who's reading, like pay attention to this. So this is like another one of those subtle things where he gave up his inheritance for a quick fix. So it's like, instead of believing in what God's plan was, God's plan being like the descendants of Abraham will prosper and like spread out. So he was supposed to be a part of that, but he gave that up in order for instant gratification, right? So the lesson is, don't do that. Follow God's plan and don't just settle for instant gratification, whatever that might be, whether it's like pleasure of the flesh or, compromising your principles, whatever that is in that moment. Don't think of just what you get in that moment. Think about how it's going to affect your relationship with God forever. So I think that's definitely one lesson from this particular section. The other lesson is how you view Jacob. Like, did Jacob, fuck his brother over, And by the way, what did he gave him lentil soup and bread. Like, he gave up his whole goddamn, inheritance for a bowl of lentil soup and bread.
Do you remember the movie Stripes when John Candy is playing poker with the guy that never played poker?
I don't remember it that well. I never liked that movie. I gotta say, that movie is so overrated. But go ahead.
Wow. That's fine, but
I know you love. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shit. I didn't mean to shit. I know you like the movie.
I only like that movie until they get out of basic training.
It's like one of those,
every war movie.
That's like one of those movies where the first half is good, and then all of a sudden it becomes a completely different movie, and you're like, "What the fuck?" Yeah.
Urban assault vehicle.
Yeah.
So he's teaching this kid how to play poker, and the guy doesn't know how to bet. So John Candy says, "Let me see your cards," and he goes, "Oh, bluff me, bet everything."
Right.
Like he took advantage of the not so knowledgeable poker player.
That's so it's yes, and it's that bad.
Or I think you're jumping to conclusions. Oh no, because Esau does look at his birthright afterwards, like I hate my birthright because I guess it's not his anymore. It's now Jacob's.
Yeah, he's like resentful of what he gave up. It seems like, right? Like that's
okay. Because I was thinking you're reading a lot into this because he hasn't said like is he miserable because he gave up his birthright? Like maybe he wants to.
But I mean, he winds up being miserable over it, right? Is that the word that they use? Resentful.
He hates
he
his
despised.
birthright.
So thus Esau despised his birthright. So
all right,
that gets us to the end of Genesis 5, and I mean
25.
I'm sorry, Genesis 25.
2-digit numbers really screw with you.
Well, I mean, it's been a long show, like trying to listen to everything you have to say and like pretending to laugh at some of the stuff. It's been a very stressful hour and a half or however long it's been.
I'm sorry, this is not the Rusty show. Sorry.
So I think we've about covered it all.
God, I hope so, because I've had enough.
We've about covered it all. So we will see you next time, and peace out until then.
Peace.